Hello and welcome to this tutorial on building a social media homepage using HTML and Tailwind CSS. So this is the homepage that we are going to be building, and in building so, you shall learn most of the things that you need to learn from Tailwind CSS. Now, as a prerequisite, it is important that you know about HTML and vanilla CSS well. And if you do not, back in my channel, so if you search for @Boydutik on YouTube, there you will find this HTML and CSS crash course with 3 projects. Please make sure you learn them well first of all. And then you should have all the required tools that we are going to be using in this course. So as the IDE, we are going to use Visual Studio Code, and you can download it for your target operating system. We then are going to move onto this Node.js, which you should have, which is a runtime for JavaScript. As a build tool, we will be using Vite and, of course, Tailwind CSS. Now, we are also going to be using a profile avatar, so you can go to Google now, search for profile avatar, and download an avatar that you like. Now, to begin, what we are going to do is open up our Visual Studio Code and make sure, first of all, we have a few things in place. Come to this Extensions tab and make sure all these extensions you have with you. And you can simply search one by one in the search panel. And these extensions are simply going to help you with your development journey by making it a bit easier. Also, come to the settings, and there's this settings option, and search for format. And there, make sure that this thing is ticked, which is format on save. So now, with all of that, let's create a folder to contain our development project. And I'm going to create a folder here. No need. I already have a folder which is Tailwind-projects, which I'll grab and drop it here. Now afterwards, let's visit that place of Tailwind CSS and click Get Started. And here we're going to use this using Vite. So let's do npm create Vite at latest, followed by the project name. So I'll copy it. And back in our Visual Studio Code, open up a new terminal, which I already have here, and I'm simply going to paste that code here. And I'll edit this project name to newsfeed_xlite and hit enter. Now here I'm going to stay with vanilla, and instead of TypeScript, I'll go with JavaScript. Now, of course, we are not going to be doing any JavaScript here, but it is a few options that we need to select when configuring Vite. And then it says go to newsfeed_xlite and do npm install and npm run dev. So let's do those. Instead of doing cd newsfeed_xlite, I'm simply going to drag this newly created folder into the workspace. And then here I can open up a new terminal and say npm install. Now while it is happening, let's go back to that Tailwind page. And here we need to make sure that we install Tailwind then. So let's copy this command and back in our terminal, paste it, hit enter. Done. Now let's go back again. And here we need to configure the Vite plugin. So we should copy this items here. And the folder name will be vite.config.ts, but we are going to use JS. So back in the root project, create a new folder, vite.config.js. And inside of that, paste it. Now the last thing left to finish off this configuration, we need to use this styles.css. And there we need to copy this line and paste. With that, our configuration is done. Let's get started. Let's go to that index.html and link this index.html to this styles.css. And before we do that, let's remove all the content here. And we know we can do this bang to generate our boilerplate HTML. And now instead of this head tag, after this title, let's bring the link element, which is a link to that styles.css from this index.html. So we can come to this href and here point to that styles.css. And of course, our relationship should remain as stylesheet. Of course, we also want to change the title to now say x-light. And to see if everything is working, in this body, let's inject some classes from Tailwind. I want to set the bg-black, so the background should be black, and the font should be, I don't know, font sans. This is what I want to set. So with that, if I now do npm-run-dev, and if I launch this by coming to this here and command or control clicking it, our web page is now running with proper styling. And I can prove it to you if I change this bg to red. Well, we don't see a red color because nothing is here. For example, I can set a p of maybe 1 to 3, save it and go back. We have this p 1 to 3, but when set the bg red to 800, and then if we go back, yes, everything is working. Let's then go back to bg black, because this is what we want to work with, and also let's remove this p. In the HTML lecture, so if you have learned HTML before, you know inside of the body, we separate out using header, we use aside, we use main, maybe one more aside, and then at the end we use footer. So all this you can imagine, for example, in a Facebook page, the header would consist of the search element and the Facebook button. Then this header, then the next header could contain the pages, the groups, all those things, and then the main would be used for your newsfeed and entry, so your status entry, and then this next header can be used for the chat and everything. And then footer in general you see in other websites. If you go really down, you see contact us on all those things. So those are the things we use inside of the body, just to give everything a proper meaning. And here we are going to start with this header. And in this header, we are going to have our top nav, so the top nav bar. So let's begin. Inside of this header, first let's do a styling for the mobile first. So if I really go down, let's work with the mobile first, because Tailwind is mobile first. Let's bring a button, and here I just want to say I want to show a hamburger menu, and then another button where I want to show the magnifying glass. And these two buttons should only be present when we are in the small size. So whenever we go up, those two things should become invisible. So let's search for the icons first. Let's say hamburger icon emoji. Let's grab this one and let's put one here. Also, let's search for search icon emoji, and let's grab this one, put it here. Now if we save and go back to our thing here, we don't see anything because both of those icons are in black too. It's for the body, outside of those BG color black, let's also set text dash white so that the contents are now in white. Great. Now with that in the header, you see that these two buttons are packed together. And we know we can use display flex and justify between and justify content to move them to take all the space, which we are going to do now. So these buttons are being wrapped by this header. So this header is what we are going to target now. And we are going to use this class. And class is where we keep on injecting our Tailwind styles, like you see here. So inside of this class, first, let's say that I want this class to be sticky. It should always stick to the bottom, because no matter how much we scroll this web page, I always want it to stick to the bottom. And from my HTML and CSS lecture, you know that if we use sticky, we should also use top or maybe bottom or right or left, whatever. You should use some direction because it is going to stick to some direction. And in this case, we want it to stick from top. And I also want to set the Z index to 30. Although Z index and all those things are really nothing you will see now, but it is a good thing to have it here. And I'll also set a border of maybe -b, so a border of 1 pixel. Now let's not end there. Let's say that the border color, so the border should be of gray and 500, like so. And I want some distance between these two. So first we need to add flex. And now we can say item center. Also, we need to set the justify content to maybe justify between. You see, all these things would be very difficult in vanilla CSS, and it's so much easier here. So after that justify between, let's set the padding in the x-axis to maybe 6 and the y-axis, so py, to 4. Save it, and this is what we have. Now this is something we have in big size and in small size. We do not want it to happen. We only want it in the small size. It should vanish when we go to big size. Now to do so, let's work with these individual buttons. I'm going to say small size layout. So for this button, let's bring that class again. So for this hamburger button, and let's say for the SM, so whenever we cross the small size, right? So for example, if I set it to hidden, display hidden, you see it's gone. But I only want it gone whenever we cross the small size section. To do that, we use this SM colon, which means, like, hey Tailwind, whenever you cross the SM boundary, so whenever you become anything bigger than small, only then be hidden. Because this hamburger, we only want to show it in the mobile menu, not in the big menu. So in the big menu, I want it hidden. And likewise, we can do the same for this search button. So I can again add this SM hidden class here. And now you'll see whenever we go up, both of those things are gone. And whenever we come to the small size, they reappear. Similar to that, let's add the big size layout 2, which is going to be an H1 of X and an input area of search. So now you see in the small size we have everything. We have all the 4 items which we want to change. This H1 and this input should not be visible in this small size. It should only be visible when we go up and when both of those buttons become hidden. So for that we can also use a new class, and here we can say that it should always stay hidden. Also, this search should always stay hidden. So even in the big size, it should stay hidden. And both of these should only become visible whenever we go past the SM. So whenever we cross SM, we want to say now it should be block, not hidden anymore. Sorry, not here. Here. Also, we want to put that inside of this class too. So now you see, whenever we go up, this 2 becomes hidden and this new 2 items become visible. So we have this h1x and we have this search input here. So now with our layout ready for the header, let's stylize them properly. Let's start with the mobile design first, and let's work with that hamburger. So after that SM hidden, I want to set the color to text blue dash maybe 500. Oops, sorry, not this. My bad. We can set the text to blue 500. Not a problem. Also, I want to set a hover effect. So whenever we hover over it, and we can use this hover colon, what I want is the background color to change. So the BG dash gray to maybe 800, like so. And I also want to give it a rounded background, and maybe we can set the padding to 4. Like so. Also, these are the things we can set for this icon as well. So with our mobile design now ready, let's work with the style that we want when we grow up to bigger size. So I'll remove this so I have more space, and let's work with this big size layout inside of the header. So for this h1 in the class, after this hidden and SM block, let's inject some styling. I want to again set the color to this text blue 500. So it looks like this. I want to set on the y-axis to py of 100 to, I want to set some padding of, I don't know how much, a padding of 4. So I can do padding 4 like this, or I can set individually. For example, px, so in the x-axis maybe I want 20, and in the py I want maybe 40. So in the y-axis I want 40. It's just for demonstration. I don't want this. I want a p of 4. And also give it a maybe font size. Font. How do we increase the font size? Well, we can search by going to this docs here, to Tailwind docs. And let's say I want to search the font size. So font size can be set like this. So text 2x1. I'll set this one. Alright. Now also stylize the input. So after this class, hidden and SM block, let's say I want to give it a width of 72. Now I do not see anything because I need to add some border. Yeah, now I can see. Now after that border, let's set the border color to border dash gray dash maybe 600, or maybe, yeah, 600. Let's set the rounded to rounded dash full, so full rounded. I also want to set some padding, so on the x-axis, so px of 5 and py of maybe 2. Well, I don't see anything because I never added some placeholder text for this this input. So let's add some placeholder text. I can simply say search. Yeah, much better. So let's get back to the styling. So after all those padding, let's say for the text, so this placeholder text, so the placeholder should be of gray dash 400. And you see that placeholder text changed, but if we write something, it is in white. So for the search text, I want the color to be text dash gray dash 400. So the same as the placeholder color. Now, after that, that is pretty much it. I do not want to do any more styling, and with that our header is now ready. So even if we increase, this is the style we have. If we go really down, this is the style we have. But I think I want this to remain white instead of that blue color. So I'll just quickly remove these colors. I do not want these colors here. Alright, so with that our styling for the header is ready. Let's now move on to the next section. Now after this header, what I want is, after this header, I'll add a new comment here and I'll say I want a layout wrapper. So if you remember, we had a few different things and I want to add those few different things to a div. And this div will now have this aside main and this aside. So I'll cut it and paste it here. Because all of them are going to have some sizes and all of them are next to each other in this y-axis, so in this x-axis, my bad. And that is the reason I want to wrap everything in this div. And for this div, I also want to give a class. And I want to say that it will have flex. And max width will be of, I don't know, 6 x1. Let's give it that. And this width and also I want to set the width to maybe full. So with that, let's get ahead inside of this layout wrapper. Inside of this layout wrapper, I'll go one step at a time. First we'll go with this aside, then the main, and then this next aside. Now the first aside is for navigation on the sidebar. So side navigation. Side navigation. So let's get on with it. For this side navigation, inside of this aside, I want a new nav element. And instead of this nav element, I'll have many A attributes. And outside of this nav element, I'll have a button, which simply says tweet. Now let's work with this aside by working inside of this nav element. So for this first link, let's say home. And I want to set the href to hash so that it goes nowhere. And I'll copy this a few times. So A, and then one for maybe explore, one for notifications, one for messages, one for bookmarks, one for profile. And let's change the text now. So home, explore, notifications, messages, bookmarks, and profile. So these are the things we have. Now let's get on with the styling. So I'll start with this parent div, which is this aside. So this div, this aside, which contains all these items here. So for this aside, let's give it a class and say it should be hidden and it should only become visible after we cross SM. So whenever we are at SM, I want it to become flex. So whenever we go up, it should appear. And then I want to set the flex to flex direction column. And you see, because this is one single child and this is the second child, all of this is above the tweet because all this nav is considered as one child of this aside. So after that flex column, let's set the width to 60. Let's set some padding of maybe 4. Let's give it some space in the, I don't know, y-axis, space y of 8. Okay. Also, let's make it sticky. And if we are using sticky, we should add some direction. And I'm going to use top. And from top, I want a distance of 40. Now, let's not end there. Let's give it an height of the screen height. And give it some text of, I don't know, text white. We do not need to give any text white because we are already setting text white inside the body. Let's just say font to semi-bold. Alright. So with that, our styling for the aside as a whole is ready. Now let's go inside of this individual child and let's style them. So let's first go inside this nav and let's inject a style there by using this class. And we just want to say, bro, I want you to be flex and your direction will be flex column first of all. And let's give it some spacing in the y direction of 3. Perfect. Now inside of this nav we have many A elements, and I'll just style one of the elements and then I'll copy the style for all of this. So after this href, let's bring a new class and say I want, whenever I'm hovering over you, I want to give it some color. So bg of gray of, I don't know, 800. So like so. Let's give it some padding on the x-axis of 4 and in the y-axis, so py of 3. And let's make it rounded. So rounded dash full. And that is the style we like. So let's grab this entire class. And if I alt and click all of this place, I can multi-select, space and paste. With that, our styles here are ready. Perfect. Now after this, let's work with this button. And for this button, let's again give it a class. And I want to say that the BG color should be of blue 500. I want to set the padding on the y-axis of 3. I want to make it rounded by using rounded full. And let's make it bold by using the font dash bold. Also, whenever we hover over it, I want to change the color. So hover, I want to take this color here, but change the weight to 600. So with that, we have this. And what if I give it some auto margin? So maybe margin top dash auto. Oh, that's not very good. So I'll remove this margin auto. Okay. Let's move ahead and let's work with this main. Because inside of this main, I want to have two different things. I want the user to be able to input their status, and I want to see status from other user. So if I comment here, input area, and then I want a feed area, so to say. Now for this main, let's give it a class, first of all, of flex1, so that it takes all available space, and a max width of x1. Also, I'll give it a mx of auto So margin in the X direction of auto. And I'll give it a border of 1 by using border dash 1 and border on right of 1. Sorry, on left, border left of 1 and border right of 1. So border L and border R. And the border color should be border gray of maybe 600. And while we are here, let's give it a padding of 4. So you see from the main, this is what is coming. Let's now work with the individual parts. Now inside of this main, we have the input area and the feed area. Let's start working with the input area first of all. I'll use a section here. And inside of this section, I want an image. So the image of me, so the user who's using. After the image, we want a text area to input everything, and we can remove this name and ID. And we want a new button, which then say tweet. Like so. Now let's start working with it. For the image, we can set the source to that profile image.jpg. And as the alt, we want to say profile image. Let's start styling by adding the class. And before we do individual styling, I think it's better to set the general style for the section, right? So for the section, let's add the class first of all. And first we want to set it as flex. So everything goes side by side. Let's increase the size just a little bit. All right. And I want to say that the spacing should be a space 3. So space in the X of 3 after each. And a border bottom. I want a bottom border. And the border should be of border gray of 500. Maybe 600 would look good. Yeah. And let's give it a padding bottom of 4. A margin bottom of 6. And a general padding of 4. Okay. So with that, our section styling overall is ready for the input area within the main. Let's now work with the individual parts of this section, which are this image, this text area, and this tweet button. Let's start with the image first of all. Now the image is too big. First, let's make it rounded full. Let's give it a width of, 12 and a height of 12. Perfect. Let's now move on to the text area. Now for the text area, I first of all want to set a placeholder and say what's happening. Like so. And now let's start styling each of this. So for the text area, let's introduce that class. And first of all, I want to say, bro, you should have a flex of 1 because you should take as much available space as you can take. I also want to make sure that it is not resizable because you see text area is resizable. I don't want it. So after this flex 1, I want to say resize to none. After the resize, we can set the color for this placeholder. So the placeholder can be, gray of 400. Yeah, better. And here I want to set some padding of 2. So we have that padding, and that is good. Now let's start working with the tweet button here. Let's give it a class, and this should be of BG blue 500. It should be rounded full And let's give it some padding. So in the x-axis, px of 5 and py of 2. I don't know, the py of maybe 1 or 0. Okay, y of 2. Let's give it some height of, I don't know, 20. Or maybe a width of 20. I don't know, this button is not looking good. Let's do a... What's wrong with this button? Let's bring this button here. Well, to make it better, we can just say self-end. And with that, if we save, it's better. So with that, instead of the main, the input section is now ready. Let's now work with the feed section. Inside of this main and this, after this input section, let's for the feed section, here let's make a new section, or maybe a new article, because article is befitting of a singular post. And inside of this article we want many things. First we want a new image, and the source, we'll come back to it later. We then want a new header and a footer. So header is going to be containing who this post came from, so that the user of that post, and the footer is going to contain the post word itself, so the like button, the share, and all those things. And this header and footer, I'll wrap them in a div. So inside of this div again, in this header, I want a new div. And inside of the div, first I want an h2 that should say maybe some name. So John Doe. And after that h2, let's add a new p element where I can say at john.doe, for example. So that was the header. And inside of this header, after the div which has this h1 and h2 and p, so after the div inside of the header, let's add a new button. And for this button, I don't know, we can simply say ... maybe, just to make it a bit visually appealing. So there the header ends. And now for the footer, let's add some more content. So between this header and footer, I want a new p element, and here I just want to say just maybe launched my video tutorial. And if I come here, maybe we can search for some rocket. Can we? Okay, simply let's grab this and paste it here. No need a rocket. And yeah, just for having it so. Now for the footer, after this p, for the footer, I want many buttons. So I want a button for reply, retweet, like, and share. So reply, and then we want retweet, we can have a like and a share. So a like, share. Now for each of these buttons, I also want to add emoji. So I'll search here, reply. I'll grab this and paste it here. We then have retweet. Let's remove this retweet. Just reply, like, and share is good. So we can have a like. And to end, let's get a share. For the share, now maybe we can use this. So let's have a look. I don't like the thing, so for this, the reply, I'm going to change to this. For the share, I'm going to, I don't know, change to something else. For the, let's change the like to. And for the share, how can we share? Maybe we can use this. Yeah. So yeah, that's what we have. So now with that, let's get with the styling. So first of all, for this article section, let's start from the beginning. So for the article, I want to set the, give it class, and first I want to set it with flex. Now we can't end there, we need to set some spacing of maybe space x4. That's better. Now let's get inside. For this image, let's bring the source to that profile image JPG, and the alt we can say profile image. And now let's start styling by injecting class into it. I just want it to be rounded full with a width of 12 and a height of 12, similar to this one here. So with that, our image is now ready. Let's now work with the div that has the header and the button. So these three things here. So for this div, let's give it a class, and we want it to take many space as much as it needs. So flex 1, because everyone has flex 0, and I want a border bottom. Also, the border should be border gray of, I don't know, 600 can be good, maybe 600. And let's set the padding bottom of 4. So with that, this is the individual post from a user. Now we should style what goes in between them. So let's start with the header first of all. For the header, let's give it a class, and we can say, bro, we want it to be flex, and we want justify between. So because we only have 2 items as the child of the header, so this 2 is acting as one child and this button is acting as the second child, and that's why this 2 and this are now side by side, because we're setting flex and justify between. So with that, let's now go inside of this div. So this 2 here. So for the div, we do not want to give any styling, but for the h2 and p, we want individual styling. So let's give it a class of font dash bold, and text, no need to set text white. Now for the p element, also give it a class and inject some styling of maybe text gray 500 and text sm, so the text in the smallest size. That is it. Maybe set it to 400 just to make it a bit nicer. Yeah. So that's that. Let's now also stylize this button. So this button is for like more actions, right? You can ban the user, you can save the post, and so on and so forth. So for the class, let's say I want text gray of 400. I want to set the color. I also want to give it a hover of this color, except now with 500, like so. So with that, this header section is ready for this article. And for the element, so the P element, we can make it just a bit bigger by using empty-2. So margin top of 2. And for the footer, however, let's start adding classes instead of the class. And first, let's set it to flex. So everything is side by side well. I also want to set the space x to 10. So space in the x-axis to 10. So that is the look we have. And then maybe we can set the text to text gray of 400. And again, we want to set some margin to the top of 3 to isolate the content text well. And lastly, let's set everything here to text SM. So these things look small. So that's that for the footer overall styling. Let's now work with these individual buttons. So I'll make one class and one style, and then I'll copy to the next. All we want to do is we want to give it a hover of text blue of maybe 500. So whenever we come here, we want to change the color to blue. And now we can simply grab it and paste it here and here. So with that, our content part is ready, our main part is ready. So for example, if I copy this article here and if I paste it maybe 1, 2, 3, 4 times and save, you see we have all these things. Except only for the top article here. So if I remove all of this, I just have one article. So now we have 2 articles. So here for the top article, I want to set the margin bottom to 4. Yeah, better. With that, we now have a proper article. And let's remove this last article. So if we want, we can just copy it as many times as we need to. Now you see we have a problem. Our UI doesn't look very good. The main section is taking up all the space. We do not want this. We want a similar aside now that would have a similar width of 60, and it should only be visible in bigger sizes, right? So for our entire body, we have the header, then we have the div, we have the footer. Inside of the div, we have our aside, main, and then we want a new aside. We want to say aside, and inside of this, give it a class of this. So it should be hidden, and whenever we go to large size, so LG, it then becomes block, so visible, and it will only have a space of 60. So with that, if we save, you see nothing changes. Even if we increase a bit, nothing changes. But if we increase really big, you see now we are taking up a space of 60 on both sides, and our main is now sitting right in between, nice and well. Now also, you can argue that we can maybe make this main a bit better. You can do that however you want. So with all of that, let's now move on. So our header and this div is ready. After this div, let's now work with the footer and a special item. So before we work with the footer, I want to work with a new button. And this button is similar to Messenger button. You see, whenever you go to Facebook, there is always a button here that is always hovering. It never goes anywhere. Even if you scroll, it always stays there. And I want to build a button like so. Now for this button, I want to go to this main where we had this reply icon. I'll take this because I want to use it. And then instead of this button, I'll simply paste it. Now let's get started. For this button, let's add some class. And first, it should be fixed. So it should always stay in one place. Then it should be from the bottom. So bottom of 6 maybe. No, not just bottom, but it should also be from right of 6. So there. It will always stay here, no matter how many things we are scrolling. And after that, let's give it a BG of blue 500. And when we hover, I want to change this color from BG blue 500 to BG blue 600. Now we can't just end there. We want to set the rounded to rounded full. And we will give it a width of 14. Also, let's give it a height of 14. So it's nice and rounded. Oh, it's hover. It should be hover. Yeah. So after that, width and height, let's give it a flex. And we can call it item center, so everything is centered well. And we can set the justify to center, to really center it well. And we'll give it a bit of a shadow. So shadow of, I don't know, like a LG. Let's do that. Even I think we cannot see any shadow, so that's no point in having it. So with that, our button is now ready. All we need to do is work with the end, the footer. Now for the footer, we already have this footer here from before. All we have to do is put content inside of it. So as content, what I want to say is, first I want to say, you know, that at copy. So I want to bring that using a code of this and COPY. So this one. And I want to say 2025 BOI DDU to Boidutik. Sorry, it's Xlite. Xlite by Boidutik using HTML and Tailwind CSS. That is what I want to say. So that is here. So let's now stylize this footer and let's wrap up this class. So I want to give it a BG of no need for a BG. Let's give it a border dash T, so border top. Let's and the color should be of border gray. We can use 600 because that's what we have been using all along. Let's say we want to center everything, so text center, and give it some padding of 3. We can give it some margin top of 6 maybe, or not if you want, up to you. And let's give it a text gray of 400 and a text SM to make it small. So with that, our project is now ready. Our header sticks here, but it is now transparent. As a result, we can see everything. Let's change that quickly. Simply by coming here where we have this header, we should set the BG black and text white. So with that, yeah, much better. Well, and now to wrap things up real quick, let's give it a better sizing. So here, where we have this layout wrapper, let's change this styling to something else. Let's set the max W to 6x1, which is perfect. Instead of W full, what we should do is set the margin in the X direction to auto. And then set the width to full. And with that, if we save, we can see that everything now looks perfect. And with that, our course now concludes.